The forest was dense, its towering trees shrouded in an eerie fog that muted all but the sound of 5 friends bantering as they followed a barely visible trail. They had come seeking adventure, drawn by rumors of an abandoned site where strange disappearances had been reported. Each friend was distinct in temperament: Mia, the cautious one, who trailed a few steps behind, wide-eyed and uneasy. Arlo, the thrill-seeker, striding ahead, grinning ear to ear. Darcy, the skeptic, shrugging off every ghost story with a sarcastic quip. Jonah, the realist, quietly taking in details, trying to keep the group sensible. Reed, the leader, who'd convinced everyone to come in the first place. Despite Mia's whispered pleas to turn back, they pressed on. Arlo cracked jokes to keep spirits high, Darcy scoffed at every ominous crunch in the underbrush, and Reed confidently assured everyone that the stories were exaggerated. But an undercurrent of tension wove through the group, evident in the forced laughter that echoed among the towering, silent trunks. Eventually, the fog parted to reveal an ancient structure hidden among the twisted roots and crooked branches. Strange symbols adorned its surface, shifting whenever the group glanced away. Mia felt a chill run down her spine, but Arlo, as always, dismissed her worries with a roguish grin. He was the first to step inside. Reed followed, determined to lead by example, and Darcy rolled her eyes, muttering that they'd all come too far to turn back now. The moment they crossed the threshold, a subtle wrongness settled over them all. The hush of the surrounding forest became absolute. Jonah frowned, sensing that the air felt thicker, as though it pressed in on them. Darcy tried to formulate a logical explanation for her discomfort, but even she couldn't ignore the hair raising on her arms. Mia stayed close, her gaze flicking between the drifting motes of dust in the stagnant air, half expecting something lurking just out of sight. At first, it seemed as though nothing extraordinary had changed. The structure led to another part of the woods, almost a mirror of what they'd just left. The same twisted roots, the same canopy overhead. Yet everything felt off. The colors seemed drained, like a faded photograph. Time itself felt slowed, each second stretching a bit too long. Arlo made a wry joke about a set designer missing a coat of paint, but nobody laughed. Then the illusions began. Shadows skittered across the periphery of their vision, disappearing the moment they tried to focus on them. Whispers tugged at the edges of hearing, impossible to pinpoint. Jonah suggested it might be the wind, but Reed hesitated before agreeing. There was no wind. Eventually, they stumbled across what looked like their own camp, a perfect replica, down to the mismatched cooking pot and the half-burned pieces of wood. Reed's confident demeanor faltered, and Darcy, for once, had no clever remark. Mia's heart pounded in her chest, insisting they leave. Arlo, bravado wavering, picked up a rock and hurled it at a strange symbol carved into a tree trunk. A deafening screech tore through the silence, warping the air around them like a heat mirage. The forest shimmered, and for a heartbeat, they glimpsed something vast and impossible, roiling just beneath reality's surface. Panic took hold. Mia begged them to run, but nobody knew which way to go. Then the world claimed its first victim. Arlo, the thrill-seeker, tried to mask his fear with a joke, but his voice cracked mid-laugh, betraying his growing terror. He rounded a tree, swearing he saw the path out, only to vanish the instant he stepped beyond the trunk. One moment, he was there, the next, he was gone, his grin replaced by a stark, silent scream. Mia rushed after him, calling his name, heart hammering in her chest. All she heard in return was a distant echo of something between laughter and agony, cut short as though a door had slammed shut on his voice. A cold dread wrapped around Mia's heart. Darcy, the skeptic's bravado collapsed the second Arlo disappeared. She clung to Mia's arm, her cheeks flushed with panic. "This isn't real. It can't be real," she repeated, each phrase trembling more than the last. Then a voice, a perfect copy of Darcy's own, whispered her name from behind a nearby tree. She froze, eyes wide, tears welling up. "Don't listen. Mia pleaded, but Darcy's curiosity, or perhaps some other force, pulled her forward. The moment Darcy peered around the trunk, the shadows lunged. They stretched out like inky tendrils, coiling around her limbs, muffling her terrified gasp. Mia lunged to grab Darcy's hand, but it slipped away, leaving only the imprint of cold sweat on Mia's palm. Darcy's final look was one of pure disbelief and regret, as if she had just understood the gravity of her mistake. Jonah, the realist, tried to rally them, voice shaking but determined. "Stick together, we'll find a way out," he insisted, fighting to keep panic at bay. But the illusions closed in, twisting branches into mocking silhouettes of people Jonah recognized. "Jonah! Over here," they beckoned, looking like friends and family he missed dearly. His eyes filled with tears, relief and longing warring on his face. Against Mia's desperate warnings, he sprinted toward the comforting shapes. "I can lead us out," he cried, voice tinged with hope and madness. The moment he reached them, the shapes dissolved, leaving only a mass of writhing shadows that swallowed him whole. His final words echoed in Mia's ears, "I'm almost there," cut off by a choked cry. Mia's knees buckled as she realized how deeply the eldritch world could ensnare one's fears and desires. Reed, the leader, tried to hold everything together, forcing courage into his every action. He grabbed Mia's hand and pulled her along, his grip trembling. "We have to move, now," he managed, sweat beading at his temple. They ran through the warped forest, branches clawing at their clothes like desperate hands. An otherworldly mist rolled in, thick and suffocating. Without warning, it coiled around Reed's ankles, dragging him down. He cried out, frantic, as his nails scraped grooves into the damp earth. "Mia, please," he begged, tears mixing with the dirt on his cheeks. Mia threw her weight backward, trying to keep him from sliding into the swirling haze, but her strength was no match for the ancient malice at work. Their eyes locked in one final moment of anguish before Reed was torn from her grasp, the mist devouring his scream. Now, Mia was the only one left. In the suffocating hush of the eldritch world, she stumbled blindly, each breath a battle. A symphony of whispers mocked her, carrying half-heard echoes of her friends' voices, Arlo's forced bravado, Darcy's panicked pleas, Jonah's hope, and Reed's desperate cry. She sensed the forest warping around her, its branches stretching like skeletal arms, the ground undulating beneath her feet. Each step felt as though she waded through thick, unseen currents that tugged at her sanity. Just when she thought the darkness would claim her as well, her hand found cool stone, the threshold of the ancient structure. She fell forward, landing hard on damp leaves, and realized she was back in the normal forest. Yet relief did not come. The sky was a stormy gray, the air unnervingly still. Her friends were gone, taken by a place that refused to adhere to the laws of reality. In her trembling hands, she discovered a small, ancient object, its surface twisting in ways that defied human understanding. Holding it felt like clutching a heartbeat made of stone. A whisper slithered through her mind, too soft to be fully heard, but sharp enough to prickle her nerves. She saw flashes of her friends in torment, Arlo sprinting through endless corridors of flickering shapes, Darcy trapped in a silent expanse of impossible angles, Jonah forever reaching for the familial mirage that never came, and Reed clawing at a void that devoured him without mercy. She gasped, her heart pounding painfully, tears streaking her cheeks. Then she noticed the tree beside her. At first, the bark looked normal, but on closer inspection, she saw letters carved deep into the trunk, "You never left." A hollow wind swept through, rattling the branches. It carried a faint, cruel laugh that made Mia's blood run cold. She tried to stand, her knees shaky, and cradled the shifting object in her arms. The forest was silent once more, but the echo of that laughter lingered, as if the eldritch world was still watching, amused by her desperation. In the final scene, Mia steps back from the carved tree. She holds the artifact close, not sure whether it anchors her to reality or drags her deeper into nightmare. The camera lingers on her haunted eyes, then pans to the unnerving inscription on the trunk. With a low hum of unsettling static, the image flickers and fades to black, leaving the audience with the haunting sense that Mia's struggle, and the eldritch world's influence, has only begun.